Good evening. Welcome to the Jaybefaunt channel. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. So good to see all of you here on this Saturday evening. The Jaybefaunt channel is available on all major podcast platforms, so go ahead and subscribe there. Also part of the Revolutionary Blackout Network, so you can see me there on Sundays and Thursdays. If you guys have not already, please make sure to subscribe to my Substack so you guys can get email notifications. This is very important because, as we all know, the YouTube algorithm does not put out the notifications as efficiently as possible. So if you guys want to know exactly when I upload clips or I go live or write any articles, you guys can get that straight from me on there to be put on the email list. Also, if you guys have not already, please make sure to give the stream a like. That pushes me out into the algorithm. It is deeply appreciated. And before we get started today, I want to say hello to all of the people that are joining me in the chat. So good to see all of you here. We have Miguel coming in saying peace and I think love Palestine. So thank you so very much for that. Sean Miller coming in saying, yo, salute. Good to see you, Sean Miller. Nice to have you. Jack Hemmings is also joining us saying, hey, JB and Sean Miller, good to see you as well. We have Roger Meadows says, glad you lost to Anthony Anderson. Roger, I'm going to get you for that one. Thank you so very much as well. And good to see all of you here. Everybody that's going to be watching on The Rock as well. Good to have you here as well. And let me share this with you guys as well. By the way, just to let you guys know, I'm going to be doing the reading soon for the books that I have of Water in the Spirit, Ritual Magic and Initiation of the Life of an African Shaman. I'll be continuing that reading there, within the next week. Also, the book by Bell Hooks, The Will to Change, Men, Masculinity, and Love. I'll be continuing the reading of that as well, too. So be sure to tune in for that. And then also, as you guys know, in addition to and furthermore, I'll be continuing the reading of Laziness Does Not Exist by Dr. Devon Price within the next week or so. So, of course, just be able to stay tuned for that as well. I'll be doing that too. So thank you very much for tuning in for that as well. We have Talkish coming in saying they told your people 40 acres and a mule and it never came through. Your people are owed reparations. Absolutely. Thank you so very much for that, Talkish. So good to see you in the chat as well. And I should have put a poll in there as well. But I mean, for the most part, you guys already know pretty much how I feel about reparations, and you guys know, the argument for reparations. But this is to share with your family, to share with your friends, and things like that. To talk about this as well. Just by the way, just to let you guys know, while I have you here, I'm going to say a big thank you and shout out to the patrons on Patreon. For without you guys, I would not be able to do this type of work. You guys make this channel happen. So thank you so very much. And yes, I am still demonetized. So if you guys like to support the channel, you guys can support via Patreon or PayPal if you guys would like to go there as well. So thank you so very much for that. And in addition to and furthermore, I'll be sharing with you guys the tiers as well, just so that you guys know what is what. So we're going to share that right now. Yeah. All right. And then we have JB members, Solidarity, Comrade, Jaybefaunters, Super Jaybefaunters, Super Duper Jaybefaunters, and Mega Jaybefaunters. So thank you so very much as well. And we have a few new patrons that we want to share as well. So thank you so very much to All One, Emperor Penguin, Rando, Teresa Gosno, Shalita Smith, and Hobb. So thank you so much for becoming new patrons as well. Deeply appreciate it. Thank you very much. So, what are we talking about today? So, I have a couple of guests that will be joining me. So, they will be in a second. So, we're going to be talking about reparations. Why should you support it? This is not the most sexiest of subjects. And so this is going to be a deep subject that I want to get deep into. And so we're going to be having Jamin Mason and Khalif Mitchell joining. For right now, we're going to have Jamin Mason. We're going to bring him in. And Khalif Mitchell, when you're ready, then you can come in and we will bring you in. But Jamin Mason is a reparationist and an activist and advocate with the Negro Collective. Thank you so much for joining.
Yes, thank you so much for having us and sharing your platform for this very mandatory and essential meeting of the minds to make this happen for people that have been oppressed since day one, in my opinion. So thank you very much. We appreciate you.
Yeah. Khalif, are you ready? Give me a thumbs up if you're ready. All right. We also have Khalif Mitchell joining as well. So good to see all of you here with me today. Look at these beautiful melanated faces that are joining me on the stream. All right. So one of the things that I wanted to ask, and there's going to be a lot of people who are going to constantly ask this question. I'm sure you get it all the time. But the first question I have to ask is, why is reparations needed and necessary from your perspective? Jamie, I'm going to start off with you.
Okay. It is necessary because it was a debt owed. It has been a debt owed for far too long. And in our ancestors' name and in their awesome presence that's still here, we have to press forward with calling attention to this debt that the American government owes. Quite frankly, that would be my answer.
Okay. And Khalif?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you very much for having me as well, Brother James. Peace and blessings with you on this wonderful Saturday. Reparations is owed, for the main reason, just to kind of give it a shortened version, is because no different than Bruce's Beach was owed back to the Bruce's family. It was originally theirs. And before there was corruption in the title, to get back to a free and clear status, they had to go back to the Bruce family, because everything sequential from that was corrupted, meaning that it wasn't done in good faith and it wasn't done on the sound foundation of contract law. So when we're talking about reparations, especially with the comment that one of the viewers had put in earlier when it was describing the 40 acres and a mule, that document itself is called Special Field Orders 15, which was given by way of the Secretary of War, and it was approved of by Abraham Lincoln, as well as his General Sherman Tecumseh Williams. So to understand that not only did we have a war, but we also had things that after the war were set up to establish us as new Americans, to be able to make our foundation from slave to American more sound. And it was also something that the government recognized as something that was bestowing upon the American Negro people for their sacrifice and valor and defense of the Constitution. So that reason alone, the American Negroes are deserving from everything from that point when we were made Americans to everything up to now that may have been sequential from not having those things that would have been given. So just no different as it would be an inheritance for a family member that might not know it's their inheritance, no different than it is for an inheritance for a family member who does know it's their inheritance, whether they know or not know, whether they're good or not good, whether they're male or female, whether they're white, mixed, black, white. It does not matter, because as long as you have that Negro bloodline in you, you may be a generation or two away from that ancestor that was supposed to have it, but because of where we were with the government, they literally didn't allow us. So everything from that culminating is owed to us, because that's what we would have had now should we not have had interference in that timeline of things? So that's why I think it's old, and I believe it's an American thing. I don't think it's just a Black American thing. To be honest, I firmly believe that it is an American thing, because those American revolutionary abolitionists that were Republicans that risked their lives, fought and died alongside newly freed Negroes are very much worthy of having their debt go into honor as well. And their debt was to make sure the American Negro was free. Absolutely.
Yeah. So this actually gives a great segue to another one of my questions. What would you say? And I'm start off with you, Jamin. How would you respond to people who say, well, reparations should only be paid to slaves who are actually affected directly, not their descendants? How would you respond to that?
So can you repeat that one more time? You kind of broke up.
I'm sorry. How would you respond to people who say that the reparations should be paid to the actual people who are slaves, not their descendants, years later? How would you respond to that?
I would say that just like if someone stole a motorcycle and the person that stole the motorcycle died, but the person came forward that had actually, lost the motorcycle and asked for their property back. Whether his son comes or not to get his property, that is still something that they would receive, because that was something that was stolen, and it was property that was falsely taken from them. So I would say that, sorry for you, but that debt still has to be paid, and especially because that disparity is so clear and present to this day, as to why and what happened because of those spoils of war being taken from us. Yeah.
I think I can't hear you, Brother James. You have to unmute yourself, Brother James. Your mic's muted.
My apologies. Khalif, how would you respond to people who say that those, the reparations should be paid to the people who are actually slaves, not their descendants?
Well, that's a great point. And that's and I don't, just to kind of have it as a head up, there's no such thing as a bad question for reparations, right? So anybody with any question for reparations, thinking that it might be taboo or anything like that, that's no such thing as a bad question, because this is an American conversation. So I believe all Americans' input is worthy. So just throwing that out there as a caveat, just to everyone. But to answer that question in specific, if we were to look at those things that has suffered, especially more recent times, more like the Japanese and the Holocaust victims, we see that the Japanese internment descendants were able to trace their lineage to their ancestors who were hurt. But there were some ancestors who did not make it, who would have been owed that debt, whose first of kin, starting with the son and the daughter and then their children, would have been in line to receive those things, and the government ensured that those things were done. So it was not just to the direct people, it was to them and their descendants. So far as if we look at about a month or a month and a half ago, Governor Kathy Hochul of New York literally just approved, I believe it was about 324 million, something around that. Not don't get my numbers if I'm wrong. I'm not above reproach, but she gave somewhere some million, hundreds of millions to the heirs of the Holocaust. Well, we know that I think there's only 2 or 3 people that's alive from the Holocaust still, but most of it also included their heirs. So when you're talking about something that's owed to me as a descendant of those people who would have had it, but they did not have it, the law recognizes things in a lot different than how we have these conversations online. When you're talking about the law, it is called the right of the heir, right? As I'm owed whatever my father was owed, and he's owed whatever his father was owed, and it goes back into time, into perpetuity, because I am, in the eyes of the law, the representation of my father. I am the representation of my great grandfather. I'm the representation of my grandfather or my grandmother and my great grandmother. So because I am their representative as their literal heir to their lineage, I'm owed the thing that they would have been owed. Now, had they been not able to receive it and they died, but the mail came in their name and it has to go to them, I can now make a right of claim saying, as the heir, I have a right to take, or these things that was supposed to go to my ancestor, they're supposed to be bestowed upon me. So that kind of conversation, even though it's a conversation that's had in the circles of public space and the eyes of the law, the heir is the same as the ancestor, and that is the maxim of the law, and that's exactly how it reads. So in the eyes of the law, I am my ancestor, so therefore I am owed what they would have gotten.
Yeah. And one of the things that I just wanted to share to add to your point, this is actually out of the National World War II Museum. It talks about redress and reparations for Japanese American incarceration. And this was actually signed in 1988 by Ronald Reagan. And so when people say that reparations is something that is foreign to the United States, well, not really, because here you have really one of the people who is praised up and down by many, especially conservatives, that they actually sign a reparations payment for the internment of Japanese Americans, and they averaged around $20,000 per person, or I think it was per person or per household. And so in the end, they still got reparations. And so it's not without saying that, yes, this is not a foreign concept at all. So yeah, if you guys wanted to add on to that as well.
Absolutely. And the thing about it is this too. Whenever we see compensation, I want to always keep it known that every other group is always given a monetary value in a dollar form. This is something that is always looked at as skewed with our community, especially when the American Negro demands cash reparations. It seems to be this conversation that gets muddied around saying, well, you know what, let's have programs, let's have this, let's have that. When all these other groups always have a denotation and a dollar value for their group, for their restitution. And when we say that we want that, it kind of gets muddied. But in the eyes of the law, no, if you were to look at it from a personal injury type of situation, anytime you culminate your pain and suffering, your loss of sexual relationship, your loss of life, you're supposed to try to break that down in a close approximate value of a dollar form. So this notion that we can't say that we're valuing our economics in a dollar form, but other groups are always given the dollar form first. Whether you're talking about the Japanese or the Jewish people, there's always a dollar monetary amount that is shown for their collective programs, whether it be direct cash or community investment. It's always in the form of a dollar value, but with us, it's always in the form of a program value. And that's something that definitely should be addressed, because a lot of times, a lot of people don't see that our restitution should not be done in a monetary form, which actually brings a devaluation, which is a cause of more injury. And because that doesn't flow suit with what the course of reparations is, even from the international framework of the United Nations. It's all the 5 points. One of them is cash payments. So that's something that definitely should definitely be addressed. But Brother Jimenez, on you. You can go ahead and answer the question as well.
Yeah, actually, I would piggyback off of what you just said and say, specifically pointed out, like just like when Kamala Harris, oh, for Black people, why would I do something specifically for Black people? Maybe because they built this country with free slave labor, and weren't paid for it. I mean, yeah, so I would just add on to that and just point it out and say that the time is now, has been forever, to make this right. And I believe that by doing this, you're healing the bottom of the foot, the people that have always been oppressed. I believe once you do that, once we heal this, once white supremacy, let's keep it 100 right here. Once white supremacy gets that silver bullet, that is the only way that we're going to be able to move forward. And once that happens, this world will get better. Until that happens, we're going to be in the fight of our life, and sitting here saying this is owed and it needs to happen now. before our wealth get to, I think it's 2053. We're supposed to be at zero, and that is really, in my opinion, because Abraham Lincoln was killed and we were taken. Those special field orders 15, excuse me, was taken away. We got to be specific and call that what it is. That had infrastructures, that had protections for our people. They wouldn't be murdering us like they were. And they really have to look at special field orders 15. And that's why the Negro Collective, that's why we press that so hard. We want that. The repair can't come any other way but through that field order, period. It's not repair unless there's cash payments to alleviate the stress and the harm that our people have went through for being at I think it's 53% of the homeless community are our people. That's for a reason. And it was set in motion very just by the people with disgusting minds. I can't even think of how to say that in any other way, but people that just thought we were really truly nothing, and profited off of us, off of our bodies. Being the first form of capital in America was us, was our people, our ancestors' body. And it's just like, for people to see that and just walk and then be so consumed with every other thing in the world. There's genocide happening right now, erasure happening to our people right now here in America, to the Black American Negro. And I believe that really has to be called out and put on a full press, mandatory mission at this point. Sorry to kind of ramble, but yeah, definitely.
No, you're great. So this actually kind of segues into my next question, because I know that you both expressed desire and support for cash reparations. Now, do you think it should be cash only? Because or do you think it should be a mix of cash and a resource-based reparations?
Yeah, it's not it. See, we can't have the cash without the framework, right? A lot of us didn't go to financial schools. When I went into the professional football sports realm, I didn't have financial classes, right? I didn't have people teaching me about financial economic investment, a lot of these different things. I was blessed that I was able to learn from a lot of things I picked up on by having a lot of good big time pro players actually be like they were my pretty much big brothers. So I kind of looked at how they moved, asked questions when necessary, but paid more attention with my two eyes than I did with my one mouth. And I was able to take in a lot of information. But no, I do believe that we need to have a framework of cash payments. And I don't believe that there needs to be a lump sum of cash payments. I believe that this has to actually be done. As Newsweek had stated, how much of our amount was. They said that we were valued from their polls at 151 million per descendant for the value totality of our ancestors from when America became America, not even from the British colonies. So understanding our valuation is very important, but understanding how to have that paid out so there's not a harsh economic toll, meaning that I don't want to have $151 million right now. I would like to have the valuation of it to be how many years I would have had it had I been born. And then from this year, from that lump sum going forward, we need to have it at a rate of about 1.5 to 2 million a year, tax free as well. And also have it to where a lot of our communities set up this framework off of Special Field Orders 15. The thing about Special Field Order 15 was that it was more than just 40 acres and a mule. And hopefully, if we got some time, we can actually just go over the document, hit a couple points to actually really hone in on what the totality of this thing was. It was actually a functional setup where it did not include any monetary anything, right? The only reason we're talking money now is because we didn't have these things given to us. We didn't have those things that were promised given to us. So because we did not have it, we have suffered at a degradation and loss to our people. But had we had gotten Special Field Orders 15, there's no money in anything about it, right? It's not even like the Homestead Act. That's something totally different because it was done during a time of war, which I think even also gives it more credence to the stability of being in a realm of like a constitution or our founding documents. Our ancestors that talked to the government literally was crafting our Declaration of Independence, our Bill of Rights. If you understand how that thing works, because that was founded off of a war. And so understanding those conversations and those nuances, it plays a key role into knowing that to give us cash doesn't really give us what we are seeking as redress. We have to get that 40 acres and a mule back. And so therefore Special Field Orders 15 encompassing that fullness of what the AKA also known as, which is 40 acres and a mule. We must have that as our foundation because that describes our neighborhoods. That describes our ability to have policing. It describes how we're going to have our problems should we have them. And it was always done at a federal level, which is very beneficial to us because we knew at many stages, such like in Florida, a lot of these states may be adverse to us, but we may also need to have that federal protection, much like many indigenous tribes have, much like you see the government's relationship with a lot of these different entities that it has as far as its status with the government and relationship. We definitely need to have that due to our position in America, coming from slave and still being in this country as American.
Yeah. So with that, I'm going to be sharing right now the website that you have. This talks about American Union reparations, the American Negro Resolution. And so just going down a little bit, the first part, it says, knowledge is power. America would not be the country it is without the slave labor provided by Negro bodies. This website was created to make this knowledge accessible for all and to be a template for fellow states to file resolutions supporting the U.S. government, making our people whole in solidarity with Washington State. These harms have occurred consistently to Black American Negro communities from 1776 to present day. When we know better, we must do better. And so going down, so you are making this so that this can be submitted to different states within the United States. So it says, whereas in 1619, thousands of victims of the transatlantic slavery trade, more commonly referred to as Negroes, arriving involuntary to the territory that would eventually be known as the Americas, they were forced into servitude, declared enslaved property within the 13 colonies. So maybe this might be kind of a redundant question, but should we also be looking for reparations from England as well, because they are the ones who got that ball rolling in the first place within the span of Turtle Islands, as you know, as the indigenous folk call it.
Yeah, I would say capital hell yes. I mean, yeah, without a doubt, that needs to be a part of that. I believe we should go for America first. I believe that they need to, like I said, that needs to the supremacy realm needs to be alleviated completely. But yeah, I believe that should completely be a part of this, package deal, which Special Field Orders completely entails. But yeah, definitely.
Yeah, when we're talking about the colonial powers and things like that, those would be under the framework of a different claim for us, right? Because we have the claim from the 1619, the 1776, and then we have the 1865 claim. So when we're talking about 40 acres and a mule, I make sure I separate the two. Because again, you're talking about different governing structures. So even before the Republican Party, the main party was the Whig Party, which was from a party that came from the British colony. So when we're talking about restitution for the American Negro people, it doesn't just even stop with the British colonies. It goes to France as well, because we understand that the fleur de lis, the symbol of the New Orleans Saints, was actually a symbol that they would embrandish on our runaway Negro slaves if they were to be sought running away in the French territories and colonies. So whenever you have a Negro from the French enslavement, if they had a fleur de lis one time, if they had been caught running away again on the second fleur de lis, they would be put to death. And this fleur de lis would be branded on them in their arm, on their backside, or on their forehead or their cheek. So this was something that is also part and participle of our laws. We could see even under the colonies, and when America became America, they still adopted Le Codex Noir, which means the black codes. So we could see how even in post-colonialization periods, we could see that a lot of those ways that they treated the American Negro transferred through the times of the Crown colonies to the American colonies, to the American Revolution, even up into Reconstruction. So we would definitely have claims there, and I don't think that we should be limited in any realm of injury that we would have suffered as a people. I just believe that charity starts at home, so therefore so does reparations. So we would start at home with this country, and then we would work our way abroad, which would make sense. When we start at home, we would need money for lawyers. We would need money for international lawyers. So therefore, this is where cash payments would really be a necessity for us to actually use going forward, because we wouldn't have the benefit of having international lawyer groups, say, looking at the American Negro group. We would have to kind of create our own next Johnny Cochran's to do those type of tasks for our people, if that makes sense.
Yes, that completely makes sense. You're basically saying that getting it from the U.S. government first is step one. Then we can broaden our horizons on looking for reparations from other colonial powers abroad. I got you. All right, I pick up what you're throwing down.
Absolutely,
so I
absolutely.
Yeah, so I wanted to go into the economic impact of slavery, because I also have a question that's kind of tied to this as well. And I'll give this just a quick read. It says, whereas slavery was enormously profitable, the cotton trade alone constituted over half the nation's wealth, 50 to 60% of the value of the nation's total exports, helping pay for imports from abroad. And slave labor provided the raw material for Great Britain's textile mills, helping stimulate the world's early industrialization. Slave produced commercial crops required a host of middlemen to sell and transport them to markets and to finance and supply the slave owning planters. Southern cities such as New Orleans, Mobile, Savannah, Charleston, Memphis, and northern ports such as New York, Boston, and Philadelphia depended heavily on the southern trade. Northern farmers and manufacturers found ready markets for their products in southern towns and cities, but especially on the southern plantations. So, one of my biggest questions is, when it comes to looking for reparations, does this also include a lot of the corporations that are still in existence today that have benefited from chattel slavery?
Yes, without a doubt. And we with man, without a doubt. And that's kind of like a back channels discussion we have going on right now, literally to start knocking on their doors, because JP Morgan, they were around when slavery, they were the one insuring the slave boats. And people on that level, they are still in action today. So yes, I believe that's a way. If we start tort claims or some kind of claim, start pressing on them, they're going to say, hey, government, get these people off of our back. So yes, I definitely believe that is one in a multifaceted approach, which I think we need to take them all and shoot any direction we can. But yes, that is one of the directions I believe we should go, for sure.
Yeah, I second that. A lot of these institutions, as well as Chase, a lot of them were very profitable and built their economic empire off of slavery, right? One thing I would be remiss to mention is Has anybody ever heard of the name of the 49ers stadium? It's called Levi Stadium. Well, Levi Strauss and Company is still in the same business that they were in when they were on plantations. What's their enterprise now? Jeans, right? Well, they've been in that business since the 1600s, which makes sense why they're able to buy multi-$100 million stadiums, have a brand that's international, have a brand that's consistent. Because whether you're talking about Levi, Strauss, and Company, or just Levi's, uh, the name alone lets you know exactly that these institutions were founded from a powerhouse that still kept the market that was still relevant for them today. You know, a lot of slave institutions did not change their markets. Wall Street is still Wall Street, and it was known as Wall Street due to the Negro labor stock of the individuals of our ancestors. That was the first stock that was traded. When you're talking about the jeans company, the textile company, a lot of these jeans companies were around during the plantation days. They built their name and got their name to be a household brand, an international empire off of slavery, and they're still in that business today. So it's not just like banks, as most people may want to carouse. Whether you're talking about Gucci, or Tiffany and Company, who provided the chains, whether you're talking about Louis Vuitton, who provided a lot of the chase or the cast or the crates that locked us in these things. A lot of these companies and brands that we wear literally were synonymous with our enslavement. And yes, they would be able to foot the bill. The only benefit that they have is the comfort of ignorance, because a lot of our people do not know these companies are actually tied to slavery. So they enjoy the pleasures of these companies without understanding the tantamount relationship that they have. Now, this is something that also has to be dived into as well, Brother James. It's the fact that a lot of other groups may not feel these things because their ancestors were not the ones enslaved by these companies. So to think that there's a popular or populist opinion that may feel like, oh, I don't want to wear Levi's because they enslaved the Negroes. Well, they may feel like they're non-Negro, so they can wear Levi's because Levi's did not do a bad thing to their ancestors, if that makes sense. Whereas an American Negro may say, I don't want to wear Levi's because the Levi's brand and company was literally made at the backs of my people working from can't see morning to can't see night. So the notion that this is something that's a popular opinion or something that is cumulatively shared amongst the people of American society or the world is actually a dispelled notion, because this is actually only affecting one people group in the world and in America primarily. So therefore, the fact that every other group don't feel this way should not be seen as a shocker, if that makes sense, right?
Okay. Thank you so very much for that. I want to get to my next this next portion as well. You both were talking about special field orders number 15. I want to get just a little bit deeper in this. And it says, whereas after the U.S. Civil War on January 12, 1865, General William Tecumseh.
Tecumseh. Yep.
Tecumseh. Sure.
Yeah.
My apologies for messing up the name, and Secretary of War Edwin M. Stanton met with a group of Negro community leaders consisting of Negro Baptist and Methodist ministers from Savannah, Georgia, and they were asked, what do you want for your own people? They replied, the way we can best take care of ourselves is to have land. Whereas on January 16, 1865, Special Field Order number 15 was a military order issued during the American Civil War by General William T. Sherman, commander of the Military Division of Mississippi of the United States. The Special Field Orders number 15 was fully enforceable by wartime law. They had the authority of William T. Sherman and the U.S. Secretary of War Edwin M. Stanton, as well as the Republican President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln. So it says the sea islands and 330 miles of coastline from Charleston, South Carolina, to the St. Johns River in Florida, 30 miles back from the sea, will be given as spoils of war to the Negro families so that the injustices of slavery might be addressed and reparations could be made. This would enable the families to build a future for themselves with their skills in labor, We, the people of Washington State, fervently and unequivocally support the federal reparations program to address the fundamental injustice, cruelty, brutality, and inhumanity of slavery in the United States and the 13 American colonies between 1776 and 1964 in legal segregation and accrued disadvantages for descendants of slavery. So there it is. It's basically like a legal document.
Oh yeah, and it's attached on the. I think it's pages 3. I think page 3 is the actual field order. So that's involved in that website as well, and like that was the condensed version is literally the one that I put in here in Washington State. But we would like other states to do research. We've done a lot of the legwork. All you have to do is figure out the harms specifically to your state, put them in there, add them to it, and put it into your local senator, or make some noise and put it out there. That was the intent. Kind of take the hard part away and give everybody the nuts and bolts to how we can fix this American problem.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think one of the main things that's very important is the part that you were mentioning when you were saying about how this is a war document. When you're under war, the way things work as far as the government is very different, right? When you're in war, the Constitution is suspended, and therefore it becomes subject of the war, meaning the president has the ability to now not be president, but he's actually 5-star general commander in chief. So he's in charge of all the armed forces. He's in charge of every single avenue of anything dealing with the territories that America would encompass under his federal jurisdiction. So this is why pretty much if you look up the war powers, I forgot who it was that wrote that, or Lincoln's Code, you'll see that pretty much Abraham Lincoln was pretty much like a Caesar. Whatever he was to say was to become law, because the fact that we were fighting an enemy that was domestic. We weren't fighting an international enemy under international law. We were fighting domestic enemies under the form of a rebellious group of people called the Confederates, who went against the Union to go ahead and therefore formed armed rebellion and armed insurrection against to overtake and overthrow the Constitution. So therefore, the Constitution is suspended. If you look up the prize cases, you can see where that judgment of the power of Lincoln was given when it said that the Confederates' property that was seized out at sea was taken was taken as contraband, therefore given as the spoils of war to the government, because they said that there was no rights upon which the Confederates were owed, because they had then turned against the Constitution. So there was nothing that the Confederate government would have ever been able to get back, would have ever been owed, because to take up armed rebellion is to literally put yourself in contradiction to what the Constitution was supposed to protect you for. So therefore, under the prize cases, Judge Taft's decision, the same one who decided against, when you're talking about the one case, when it became whether he would be the American Negro was never seen as a descendant, Dred Scott decision. So whether you're talking about the Dred Scott decision and Judge Taft in that decision, a year later, he had to make the prize cases, which said that the Confederates were not owed any protection under the Constitution due to their armed insurrection. What does that mean? That means all of that land, all of the things that they left and fled from or fought against and were lost to had become spoils of war. Well, all of these lands were lands that our ancestors had been working on. These are lands that our ancestors knew very well. The plantations and all of these things were things that were literally going ahead and actually doing it. And one of these things that we're doing that was mainly big was literally the fact that our ancestors went ahead, took a war, won a war, and then were given spoils from that war. And so since we were given those things, we literally needed to make sure that we kept those things, because these were not just things that were given from the Congress or the Senate. These were things that were actually given as spoils of war. So as spoils of war goes to the victor goes to spoils of war, Special Field Order 15 and a lot of those things were to be given those type of benefits. So this isn't just a debatable type of conversation. This is actually something that we are supposed to have, no different than the American territories from the British colonies in the American Revolution. And Special Field Orders 15 is equal to or greater than even the Constitution or the Bill of Rights for the 1776, because in 1865 the Constitution could have very well been destroyed had the Confederates won the war. And that is something that I think a lot of people who are especially American lovers or MAGA or America First, they fail to see that that tantamount event between the Civil War and the Confederates literally could have yielded a negative net impact, because that Constitution that we enjoy and love today would have been very different should those Confederate soldiers have won against the Union.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's something that I saw. It was a while back, but I found it to be very interesting. Was that there were a number of people who are within our government that are also descendants of slave owners or enslavers. And so, would you say that reparations is owed from them, from their families as well? Because just thinking about people like Bill Clinton, I think the Bushes, even Barack Obama has slave owning ancestors as well. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I wouldn't say, and this is why I think leaving it where Special Field Orders 15 is the foundation makes it where it's inarguable, right? If I was to go after each and every one's family, then an argument can be made that that was a private contract, these were private property, and therefore they're not brought into the jurisdiction of the federal government to be owed anything. This is me playing devil's advocate, right? I could then make the argument to say that there's no statute of there's the statute of limitations or the statutes of power does not grant the federal government to tell me what to do with my property, right? So this is why you need things like President Proclamation Order Number 95, commonly known as Emancipation Proclamation. You need these documents to say that there's a legal standing for this property to now be shifted into non-property status. You can't just take a person's property without giving what? You have to give equal or greater compensation or fulfillment of contract, which is why the conversation about going after families is kind of something where we're talking about is not really what we're not in the framework of that. We're owed from the federal government. The federal government is the one who allowed the promise of the 40 acres in the mule Special Field Orders 15 to be written. We tie a lot of our historical slave context to give contextual value. But to be honest, too many arguments can be made and had that will not be advantageous for the reparations conversation to go anything from 1865 forward. Everything from the Emancipation Proclamation to Special Field Orders 15 allows us to have a legal footwork as descendants of those who were once chattel property to then become contraband property, to then become American, to then say that that journey cannot be missed, because should it be missed, we're now arguing, should a person who had the property done right by labeling us as human or not, or should they have done right by letting us free after contracts? And it's a nuance that just muddies the conversation. To keep it pure and clear, I think the conversation from the things that happened via the war, whether you're talking about Special Proclamation Order Number 495, known as Emancipation Proclamation, that said that the federal government says that any slave that can break free or get to a Union battle line can now be free. And then you get the guarantee of freedom as an American, not just as chattel property. I mean, just not as contraband, which is property of war, but now American in Special Field Orders 15. That's the first legal document from this federal government that called us an American. The Emancipation Proclamation did not make us Americans. because it was only allowed to free us from Confederate states. We needed something to therefore label us as American, and Special Field Orders 15 is the first document that labeled the American Negro people as American. Prior to that, the American Negro had no framework outside of being called a free black or a free Negro. You were not American, though. You were just free. But now that we have fought, now that we had Special Field Orders 15 during a war, we're American, because it literally says the Negro is free and must be dealt with such, and he must encourage his youth and children to fight in the armed forces, because we couldn't be forced to work, right? We couldn't be forced to conscription, so we had to encourage our youth to help hold our duties as Americans. This was in that document. So therefore, that's the first document that labels us as Americans. Anything prior to that doesn't say so. So we're not trying to go to the president who might be a ex-slave owner or the congressman, because at the end of the day, the only thing we really can hold over them is to say that they may be skewed or biased in their decision making as descendants of of those who enslaved us, meaning they might not support reparations. They might not be for our advantageous help because they were from a generation of people who probably were against us being free and against us having economic opportunities. So we wouldn't really be advantageous going after families as much as it would be going after the federal government documents that they promised to us as a people, and not just to each individual as a family.
Gotcha. Thank you so much for that. Also, I want to share this as well. Post-abolition inequalities. So this isn't just limited to chattel slavery, but it's also post. You know, you go to the Reconstruction, Jim Crow era. And so this says, whereas following the abolition of slavery, the American government at the federal level continued to perpetuate, condone, and often profit from practices that continue to disadvantage Negroes. These practices included sharecropping, convict leasing, black codes, Jim Crow laws, organized riots, unequal education, unequal access to power, mass incarceration, and unequal access to global civic programs and agendas. Civic organizations were able to operate while openly discriminating against Negroes and still have a non-tax exempt status and disproportionate treatment at the hands of the criminal justice system. This is whereas the median wealth of the white household is 2 times that of Negroes and their descendants. This form divide and conquer has been strategically implemented by dominant groups to keep this oppressive power structure running exactly how it's designed to run, to reassure that those in power today will stay in power tomorrow. Whereas restitution for Negroes and their descendants in the United States is estimated at least 15 trillion in cash payments, endowments, and annuities, trust accounts, or other investments that will improve the well-being of the Negroes and their descendants who were harmed. In Washington state, this payment would be approximately 124 billion, double the size of the 2022 state budget. This U.S. federal government is culpable for its actions regarding slavery and the many other atrocities and injustices noted throughout history against Negroes and their descendants. Whereas in Washington state and nationwide, Negroes continue to experience evictions, foreclosures, and homelessness at statistically far greater rates than their peers in any demographic throughout the U.S. So you're also tackling the inequality that has also been happening post-chattel slavery. So there is, so when it comes to the amount that is calculated, because if I remember correctly, Dr. Sandy Darity in his book From Here to Equality, I think he estimated about 11 trillion. I think was it that? If you guys don't mind correcting me on that.
One thing I know Dr. Darity says is that's just the base. Like that's the lowest estimate. That's like the low. I think he said it's
minimum
23 trillion. If anything, minimum. I think he said more recently 23 trillion. But he
23.
also always throws the caveat and says that's the bare minimum. That's the base. Newsweek had it at 151 million a piece, each descendant. That's the value that their economists did, and they actually made that publication, I believe, in 2022. I'll try to put that in the chat so you can see that as well.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you so very much for
And
that.
if I could jump in real quick, there is, just to kind of piggyback off of Khalif's last statement, like this can only be California just proved that a state cannot do this. I don't care how big your economy in that state is, California, all that stuff. It don't matter. This is not something that a state can pay. This is a federal harm that can only be repaired by a federal action. And so I really wanted to make that clear. All these state reparation task force and all, that's a grift. That is literally people wanting to make money. This isn't, that's NAACP. I'm sorry, but not sorry. Anyone that stands against lineage based, the reality of what this is for special field orders, they're standing against true repairs. So there is no kind of half stepping when it comes to that. It's either you are seeing the truth in this or you're not. And that's kind of the scary part about it, because the reality is coming. This document alone is straight proof of harms literally that our government sanctioned, and that they're trying to kind of wash over today. Like I said, they tried to take the word Negro out of the lexicon for a reason. They are trying to erase our people. And just like what's happening right now in Chicago. Mark Carter is out there doing amazing work in Chicago, pushing back on the immigration situation that's happening, and just kind of trampling over our people in already bad situations, and then adding more people to vote. That's erasing us even more. That's putting the lower class below the lower class. So how do you do that, and then expect us not to see the reality in you erasing our people right before our eyes? So that's another harm that is happening post all of this stuff that's happened before, but now they're making us, they're trying to make, because we see the play and we see what they're doing. We're seeing that they're bringing people here. And I'm not saying I'm against oppression anywhere. I don't care who it is or what it's about. But what I'm saying is, how can we be, if we're American first and we need to focus on American issues without giving all these other debts that have been owed need to be paid, definitely before we're just handing out money and giving checks to anyone that comes here. And it's just crazy, man. It really is. But we need to draw attention to all of these harms and push forward with the truth, which we're trying to stand in. Yeah.
So, I mean, this actually kind of goes in line with some of the arguments that I've made as to why we should not be funding the war in Ukraine, or by giving over $3 billion a year to Israel, because really you could have paid reparations to those of us who are those of us who are considered American Negroes, or some people say American freedmen. They could be giving that to us instead, but instead we're giving money to countries like, for instance, Israel, which is committing genocide in Gaza against the Palestinian people. Or you have what's going on in Ukraine, and there are unfortunately a huge number of Nazi elements in Ukraine, which we're giving money to, which sounds really out of whack when you think about it. And so it's like, well, that money really could be going towards us here at home, especially to the people who you owe, but instead you're paying it towards Raytheon and Honeywell and Northrop Grumman. So your thoughts on that as well?
Yeah, a lot of that money that they're giving to all of these other nations, we look at that and say that that's our reparations money. We look at it and take very great offense to it, especially when you're talking about a lot of these things that we're doing are done at these are optional things. These are not things which incorporate our national security. These are not things that incorporate our national economic investment plans. These are things that are done to devalue the conversation of reparations, and we believe it's actually more nefarious and it's trying to devalue the actual monetary value of the reparations that will come to us. So, if the dollar is as strong as it is today, can you imagine the dollar from the day they actually cut the checks, as it would have been the dollar in 1985 when I was born, the dollar in 1920 when you could get a pure cane sugar soda, a all beef Nathan's hot dog, and a bag of chips for like 35 cents? The value of a dollar over the course of time should be growing in its economic strength, but due to these fraudulent investments by what we call enemies of the state, we believe our government has been taken over by the Confederates ever since Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. The Confederates had worked their way up so much so that the Dixiecrats, who was the party of our enslavers, has us now as a party so vile that we're loyal to voting Democrat without wondering if these people policies are actually good for us. We've become a tool for our own destruction more than a tool for our economic and own benefit. So when we see these things happen and politically that we see it done at the behest of government infrastructures, we look at this like these people are not American first minded. These people aren't thinking about getting America's sins clean. They're not thinking about cleaning America's roads, America's railways, which are absolutely in almost dilapidated condition. We literally have just different type of things with homelessness, with our economic investment in America. We make a lot of money for our country, and to not see the reciprocal value of that effort in our country is actually criminal. So to see these dollars going outside of our country, even when Americans are saying that we're wanting our reparations that is owed to us, it's something that is on it's borderline treasonous, because if you look at what America is supposed to be for Americans, what we see today is not that. Even reparations, it's an American plan. The American Negro's dollar does not go outside of America. We're not sending our money when we get it across the borders. We're not looking for the first Western Union to take our money and send it out to the Caribbean, Africa, Europe, Asia. Our money goes from North Carolina to South Carolina, from Virginia to New Jersey, from LA to San Diego, from Texas up to North Dakota. We're not sending our money out of the country. So our money has an ability to actually build up the economic structure, the economic investment of America, because nobody spends money faster than the Negro people anyway. They say that the dollar is in our community leaves what I think, Brother James, and they say a mere 13 minutes or 13 hours, the dollar's out of our community. Well, can you imagine when we get reparations, how much more economic investment we'll make in our communities? So understanding this type of nuance, understanding this conversation, understanding how the dollar value is, yeah, anytime you see this money going out the country, it's actually to go ahead and devalue our money and to devalue the conversation for reparations.
Mhm. Understood. So I want to also ask this question because a lot of people think that reparations is based on just race. If you're black in the United States, you will be owed reparations. Can you explain why that wouldn't be the case?
Yeah, reparations is a lineage-based conversation. Um, the only people who
Okay.
are owed reparations is not every black-looking person, and it's only those whose ancestors would have been valid on that American Negro Special Field Orders 15. If your ancestors are not ever, like my great grandmother told me about 40 acres and a mule. If you come from a people who's, when we say 40 acres and a mule, it sounds like we're talking another language. Don't even try to listen to it any further, because we're not talking to you. Because everybody whose ancestor or who's a descendant of the American Negro atrocity, American chattel slavery, know what 40 acres and a mule is. And we understand that that's what we're owed. So not every black person in America is owed that. But this also goes to show how dynamic our conversations can be, right? Because you may have a brother like my wonderful American Negro Jamin Mason, who's a mulatto, who has an American Negro dad and a non-American Negro mom. So you have that mix of a white American, black American Negro who literally who will be owed reparations. You may have somebody who's a quarter Negro. They'll be owed reparations. So we'll have this conversation, but it will be for those who literally on their paperwork have lineage of those who have paperwork from American chattel slavery. It will not just be based on you have black skin and you've been a slave somewhere, so you get money from America. That's not how it actually goes. It is a lineage based conversation, and I think anything outside of that is not specific. No different than the reparations for the Jewish people were not reparations for the Jewish people. It was for those people who have ancestors who had suffered in the Holocaust more than it was for Jewish people in the diaspora of Jewishness in the world. Just like the American Japanese internment facilities. It wasn't for every Japanese American. It wasn't for every Japanese person. It was for those American Japanese descendants who had been incarcerated against their civil rights in America. So it would be specifically for them and their descendants, just like it would be for the Holocaust victims and their descendants. So it is for the American Negro descendants, American Negroes from American chattel slavery, and those descendants.
God.
And are a lot more people owed from this government? Hell yes. And like I said, we are against oppression on all levels. But those are claims that those people need to make against the government for those harms. Like right now, I was doing, my grandma's 103. Runell Mason, give a shout out to grandma real quick.
Shout out to
And,
grandma.
oh yeah, oh yeah. And she said, "No, baby, we were not slaves. We didn't do that. We now my grandpa was a sharecropper. He was involved in that coming up in Rome, Georgia area. That's where my people come from, but we weren't slaves, right? So does that mean my aunt that grew up and went to the first segregated school, does that mean she's not owed? And now I would say, hell no, she is owed, but that's a separate claim. That's outside of the claim of what this claim is for. This claim is specifically for the Black American Negroes that built this country with slave labor, straight up and down. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
Yeah,
somebody
made a comment so just reading one of the comments, Brother James. Somebody said, so it could be people who are white passing who could be owed reparations under these rules. Absolutely. If you look up the Negro of the Week that Jet Magazine used to have, which is a wonderful, wonderful historical representation of our community's magazines, you would see stories of white passing Negroes talking about how their boss wanted them to say that they were white, and the boss knew they were Negroes. This is not nothing that is foreign. This is not nothing that's uncommon. This is not nothing that's just a phenomenon. This happens all the time. You can have a white passing Negro to a dark skinned looking Negro and a light skinned Negro. They might not even be mulatto, and they will still be looking as though they may be white passing. Some people may even have them on their paperwork somewhere as white, but it is a lineage. And this is what makes it specific. This is what makes it beautiful, because when you make it a lineage-based reparations, it can pass the bar of strict scrutiny, which does not fall under the confines of discrimination, right? Also, one thing about lineage, which makes it amazing as well, is that we can have those descendants who would have been in American chattel slavery, such as those that Harriet Tubman had moved outside of America under the Underground Railroad up to now Nova Scotia. Those people as well would be tied to our reparations claim, because they are lineage of our people who literally ran away, and therefore they are still our people, no matter how far or wide they may go. We still had conversations with another sister who was absolutely of our lineage in the UK. She was from the Johnson plantation. She's just the first generation person in the UK. But prior to that, all of her ancestors were here in America. We had a conversation as well with someone else, like Dwayne Wade Johnson. Everybody knows him for being the Rock and this Polynesian guy. Well, his dad is actually a Johnson from the underground railroad that Harriet Tubman had traveled from America, brought to Nova Scotia, and his dad and a Polynesian woman came together and created Dwayne Johnson. This is why his name is Johnson. And many of the Johnsons up there in Nova Scotia, which is a big American Negro people community literally are Johnsons from the Johnson plantation.
Wow. Oh wow.
So
I did not
somebody
know.
even like Dwayne the Rock Johnson would be descent would be able to get reparations. A lot of other people don't know as well. The brothers, the Tate brothers, Tristan and Brandon Tate, they're both in Romania. They are
Andrew
descendants
Tate.
of
Andrew Tate, right?
Andrew Tate. Yes, Andrew Tate. Thank you for the correction. Him
Mhm.
and his brother are descendants of an American Negro master chess player. Their
Wow.
mom is a European. They are eligible for the American Negro descendants of chattel slave reparations. These are two millionaires, Dwayne Johnson and the Tate brothers. They're owed reparations. So it's not about whether you're rich, you're poor, you're half Polynesian, half white, quarter Negro. Your ancestors through your bloodline was a part of this atrocity. So when reparations checks get cut, you as a descendant of those ancestors who are owed and would have been owed are therefore the descendant and living vessel of them. So therefore you are owed as well.
Gotcha. So, just a little background of myself. Uh, we traced my lineage back to, as you know, because we Black people, American Negroes, we always hit a wall. And so the wall that we hit was my fifth great grandfather that was born in 1792 in Essex County, Virginia. And so that, because of him being born in 1792, this was before the Civil War. So this would mean that someone like myself would be eligible for lineage-based reparations. But it also means that my nieces and nephews, who are also half white, that will also be eligible for it as well. Maybe prorated, but but they will also be eligible as well, because they are also part of that lineage too. So
And this is
basically,
something that passed the bar of strict scrutiny, right? Because as
mhm.
soon as we start saying you have to be Black, now we're discriminatory to those that might not be Black, right? Because you might have some
Mm.
of those cousins who ancestors didn't write that they were Black, right? They might have wrote that they
Oh,
were
that's
white,
true.
but their lineage is not white, right? Right? Because you have to go, these are constructs, which is why it defies them by not being discriminatory, by passing the strict scrutiny by going under American Negro. Because American Negro is a people in a country. So therefore, we're a people with a nation. So now we can claim reparations. So now
Gotcha.
we have many bloodlines. We have some people who will be Creole. They're Negro and French. You have some people who are mestizo, who is Negro and indigenous. You have some people who are mulatto, who are Negro and white. You have some people who are 100% Negro. There are Negroes on both sides. You have some people who are Negroes outside of America. Those are Caribbean Negroes, South American Negroes, Brazilian Negroes. They don't qualify for our reparations, but they're still Negro bloodline people of our family tree. So their reparations would be from French, would be from Spain, would be from UK, would be from the British colonies, would be from probably the Dutch. All of those nations upon whom had a hand in their detriment. So when we talk about American chattel slavery, whether you're a quarter Negro, half Negro, whole Negro, your ancestor was one that would have been from a slave field in America. You are owed because the government recognized that unless you were an eighth of a Negro, you were not white. If you were quarter Negro, you were quarter Negro. If you were, they even said they remember they tried to go to Octoroon and all of this type of stuff. They recognized that in the courts that they couldn't even decide whether if you were an eighth of a Negro, that you wouldn't even be white. So the courts had the discretion to just say that you were white. But if you were quarter Negro, you were deemed 100% Negro in the eyes of the law. So this is where the disparaging parts come in. That means that under reparations, we can't disparage like they were, because then you fall into the discrimination factors, which bring up lawsuits. If you want to keep out of lawsuits, you have to pass the bar of strict scrutiny, and the American Negro passes that bar with flying colors, because you could be a half Negro, quarter Negro, full Negro. Long as your ancestors came from that atrocity, it don't matter what you are today. Long as that bloodline ties from you to there, you're good on your matrilineage of your mom or your patrilineage of your father as well.
Gotcha. Just a question though, because you said Negro, right? And this may be just a semantics argument, but why not use the word freedman instead of Negro? What's the disparity? Is there a disparity there, or is there? I'm just trying to figure out as to why instead of using Negro, we don't use the word freedman.
Yeah, that's a great question. When you're talking about freedmen, so under Black's Law, if you was to look it up right now, Black's Law, a free online dictionary, when you're talking about freedmen, it says in Roman law, it means one who has been set free from slavery. But in America, it's respecting the Negroes. So even if you say freedmen, you're falling into the form of saying in America, it respects the Negroes. So we look at freedmen as a transition from enslaved to free. Then from freedmen, we are the American. So we're not just freedmen, we are actually American. Freedmen was a status to denote that we had came from chattel slave to free. We were no longer enslaved. But now that we're American and slavery is outlawed, there's no need to say I'm a freedman because I'm an American. No American can be held under slavery or bondage except either they be convicted and tried by a jury to become a criminal, and then you can hold them under slavery. I believe I forgot what amendment. I don't know if it's the 14th or 13th or 12th, but you only can be a slave in America legally if you're a criminal. So outside of that, you can't be a slave. Therefore, you ain't a freedman. You either are a certain American that has that lineage from slavery or you're not. So this is why Obama is an African American. Obama is a Black American, but Obama is not a Negro American or American Negro. Even those words that were true from when I forgot Senator Harry Reid told him in the halls of Congress. He said, "You're a light-skinned African American Negro. I mean, a light-skinned African American who lacks Negro dialect," meaning that you look Black, but you ain't a Negro. You don't even talk like that. Because as Negroes, we have our own language. It's called Ebonics. We have our own culture. It's called American Negro culture. As we have our own sports, it's called the Negro Leagues. We have our own songs from slavery. It's not called the Freedmen songs. It's called the Negro spirituals. So in understanding how history we were categorized and cataloged, it's very important to know that I'm a free American Negro now. I'm not a freed man because my ancestors didn't come from slavery from my mama and them. Now, my great grandparents were freedmen, but I'm a descendant of freedmen, as Dr. Darity would say, not a freedman alone. See, I would be a descendant of that. Whereas I'm an American Negro enslaved and freed. See, because when I was enslaved, you sold me as a Negro. When I became free, I got my freedom as a Negro. The process upon which enslavement to freedom is called freedman. That status of from slave to free is called freedman. My ancestors were freedmen. I'm a descendant of freedmen, but I am today an American Negro, if that makes sense.
Let me throw some water on it, my brother. Let me throw a little bit of water on there. We Freeman is us. That is all us, Black American Freeman, but that all denotes from Negro. You see, does that make sense? They said every 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 Negro may be a Black American, but not every Black American can be a Negro. That is to say, like, you can be black skin, melanated in color, but that doesn't make you a Negro. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Um,
Mm.
yeah, that it's a bloodline. It's an
Yeah, that
ethnicity.
court case was called People versus Hall, and I want to say it was in 1863 from the California State Supreme Court, where it was said that there's a wide difference between the two. A Negro may be a Black person, but not every Black person is a Negro. So when we
Mm.
say Negro in the eyes of the law, it didn't matter whether we were enslaved or free, because as Negroes, we're of that bloodline. This is why when you look up freedmen again in Black's Law Dictionary, when you're talking about freedmen, and it comes from Rome, but in America, it's respecting Negroes, as it's in the definition. So to say that I'm a Negro it encompasses that already. You're just talking about a specific period from when I was an enslaved Negro to when I became a free Negro. That process and the status of it is called freedman. But today, I am an American Negro. This is why so many people, when you look up freedmen, you see the indigenous people are freedmen. They still have a freedman's. They still identify as those people who were once enslaved by indigenous territories. Those people were called freedmen, and now they're called freedmen back into those indigenous tribes that they come from. You have a lot of people who, under the term and classifications, and this is things that Dr. Darity has spoken on as well. When you incorporate freedmen, it does not speak to specific lineage, which may include non-Negro white people. But when you say Negroes, you're speaking about a lineage of people who specifically came out of slavery, who have paperwork that ties them directly to that slavery, directly to the American Negro atrocities, and all the way to now. We were only changed in 1960. Prior to that, our Universal United Negro College Fund, Negro Bankers, the first NBA was the Negro Bankers Association, the Negro Leagues for our sports, our Negro United National Council of Negro Women, which is still up today as our governing body of women who are in politics or in government that are Negro women. They are still known as Negro organizations today that are actually for Negro people. So it's very important and vital that our name, even the Negro League's history, I think the president said when Joseph Biden, Sleepy Joe, was saying, that great American Negro, great Satchel Paige, the media, who was always trying to erase Negro, was the ones trying to condemn Joe Biden, saying that he used a term that's outdated. But actually, the president and executive director for the Hall of Fame at the Negro Museum said that it would have been no better word for Joe Biden to have used describing Satchel Paige, because that word allows others in the history books to know this ain't just a black man. This is an American Negro man. This ain't just a black athlete. This is a Negro athlete. And I think as a descendant of a Negro, one who is very proud and open and let everyone know that I'm not just a black man, I'm an American Negro man. That is something to that. And it is a power and a pride to that. That's something that I think people wanted us to kind of get away from, because it almost was fraternal in its own objections. If you even want further proof of that, the book To Go Ahead, How to Sell to the Negro in the 1970s was made because they didn't even know how to appeal to us. They didn't know what a Negro liked, what kind of couture a Negro found fashionable, because we had our own fashion, our own style, our own essence that outsiders was not privy to even knowing, because we were so tight-knit. So when that started to, when we started having integration, allowing ourselves to be kind of diluted, we literally lost those essences of things that we were kind of shielded with by labeling as Negro without any type of disrespect or any type of negative to anyone else, because we built those things on a Negro framework. Again, United Negro College Fund for the furthering of Negro children to go to higher learning, National Council of Negro Women for the furthering of Negro women in politics to have a place to meet, because just because they were women didn't allow them into white circles. So they needed a circle for women that identified them. And just because they were black women didn't mean that they were in black circles. They identified their thing as the National Council of Negro Women, meaning that we weren't just black women, because they had many shades of Negroes. Some that might not even be considered as, quote, black. They would be white passing, but they're Negro women. So that's what we hold value to. We hold that sacredness to it. And then also reading these old documents like Special Field Order 15, when it says that Negro is free and must be dealt with as such, it makes it clear that Negro is not just a color. Negro is a people. And that's something that I think also kind of gets muddied in the conversation, because some say Negro is just Spanish for black, when in America we speak English, and in America we have a word for black and it's an adjective. But the word Negro is not an adjective, it's a noun. And that's very important to understand. And that can be found in the Noah Webster's Dictionary on American English.
Gotcha. Thank you so much for that. I have another question, and I hope I'm not taking too much of your time. But
no, we're here, brother. It's a good Saturday. We're here, man. Negro unity is what the world needs. So I'm glad to be here with you. We're good.
Thank you. So some people would ask the question, and I have my own response to this, but some people would ask, in regards to getting money from the federal government, where is that money going to come from? Because some people unfortunately, there's a lot of white people, European Americans, as you will, that would say, well, it's going to bankrupt the United States. How are you guys going to get this much money from the federal government? And then some would say, well, we're already at a huge deficit. We already have all this money that we're spending already. How are we going to pay American Negroes, lineage-based reparations when they say that we could barely afford any of the other programs that are implemented?
I would jump in there and quickly say there are a multitude of ways we could. This marijuana, where is that money going? Where is all those trillions of billions of dollars, this billions of dollars that's been made with that? Why not put that toward the demographic that they harm the most with? Why not? We could do stop the damn wars. I see RBN talks about that all the time. Stop wars. Stop that shit. Stop going. Leave people alone, even if it's oppressed and it's horrible. Like, leave that stuff alone. When you leave it alone, if it ain't got nothing to do with you, unless they are encroaching on our land. That's how I would look at. And then you get into horrible things that are happening, like what's happening right now in Palestine and what Israel's doing. It's like, they're, man, people are going to be oppressed, and we should help in all fashions. But in situations like that, where it has been since the dawn of time that's been happening. So why are we bullying and stealing resources and doing? That's all we're doing over there. We're extracting from people that are literally killing each other. So how are we really helping? That's kind of where I'm at. But stop the wars, stop endless wars, tax the rich. That's another simple. I mean, they're paying less, making all that stupid banana money, right? Bananas, just extremely extravagant. I think Elon Musk, I don't even know, trillions, like stupid money, and they don't pay anything in taxes. And I'm like, wait, we pay 21, I think it's 21% we pay to eat and live, and in taxes, sales taxes. Why wouldn't they have to put that back in? And we could put that towards there are so many solutions, there are so many ways this government. And what's that going to do? We're going to fix our house. We're going to send our kids to college. We're going to, like Irie said, or like Khalif said earlier, we are going to invest back in our country. It's going to stay here and not be up on a mantle in Elon Musk's his closet. Yeah, there are so many ways that I could think of. We could sit here all day, and I could think of ways that we could form and pay for reparations. But it's white supremacy relinquishing its grip to and kind of being the guy behind the curtain that no one just goes over and pulls the curtain back and exposes who it is. It's kind of wild. But anyways, I'm ranting. But those would be some of the solutions and payments, some ways that we could pay for this. But when anyone else needs it, this isn't even a question, and that's the part I don't get.
Well, America's a money sovereign nation, so that means that we don't base our dollar value off of any other people's currency or anything like that. We can print money as well as we want, and the money can do it. The last time we had any type of money problems was when we had the greenback, and we were trying to get stuff backed by gold. We see how that kind of worked and turned out. But I think the main thing that we need to focus on is that's a problem for the person who injured you. Never in history or in injury law is the victim ever supposed to even consider how the tortfeasor is supposed to pay. The courts actually have things that it actually have as far as who how much blame does this have over that. So the courts can literally pay us and then go recoup their losses from from corporations. They can recoup their losses and say that, hey, we're paying reparations, but we found out, through our attorneys that you were this company and you did this and you redlined, you devalued houses, you did this. So we're going to say that you owe 5% of the reparations bill. You owe 20%. You owe 10%. They're able to do this to companies because they're footing the bill. And that's also something they could do in the courts. But as for us as the victims, we should never try to put in our minds how that the victimizer is going to pay us. Under no circumstance is any rape victim ever made to answer to how her rapist is going to pay. No person who's been trafficked in any human trafficking ever has to answer for how their human trafficker is going to pay. Nobody who has ever suffered any atrocity, whether you were hit by your car, you never had to worry about what insurance company is going to pay and when they pay it. They pay it because that's what they're supposed to do. And they can be the word, thank you, ancestors through the Most High. The word is called indemnified. And they can be indemnified legally by saying that they are not supposed to foot all of the bill. And some of this bill is supposed to be shared between A, B, C, or D, collectively percentage-wise. And the courts may say yay or nay. And then the attorneys from the other companies will say that we are or not. But it is never in our headspace and our spiritual space or in our mental space to take up any time to worry about, consider, or think about any ramifications of what us getting our injuries healed should do to the nation, should do to the government, because under no circumstance is the person who stole my house, stole my car, stole my bank accounts, took the life of my children, is to be looking to me to say, well, how will I pay you? That's your problem. That's your debt. That's your burden. So you should get to finding out how you're going to do that. The courts say that I'm owed it, so hurry up with the payment. And I don't think Martin Luther King was disingenuous when he said that in this campaign, we're coming to Washington and we're coming for our check. I think what happens is that so many times people love Martin Luther King on Martin Luther King Day or in Black History Month. But a lot of people don't love Martin Luther King enough to say that his last dying purpose, his last dying campaign was to go get the check from Washington. And I think a lot of times we are remiss in getting caught in a lot of other conversations that don't steamroll us in a straight line to Washington, D.C. for our check. We get caught up in who to vote for. We get caught up in immigration. We get caught up in border security, because these are all things to keep us away from getting to our check. I'm on the path of Martin Luther King and saying, when we go to D.C., this campaign, we're coming for our check. And as every year we honor Martin Luther King, we need to honor the day that his vision for getting that check is very much brought forth. Just like the day that he said he had a dream about the white and black children playing. White and black children play in the park all the time. When I take my children to the park, my children play with the white kids just as much as she and them do with the non-white kids. So that vision of Martin Luther King's dream is true, but not the vision of him getting our check for his people. And that is exactly who he said that he wanted to go get him for. And if you listen to that speech, he's actually talking about the Negro people as well. So we will be doing a disservice by not acknowledging that we are the Negroes whom Dr. King was speaking about and speaking to.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me of a meeting that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had with a few civil rights leaders back in, I think it was 1963-ish. They were actually talking. One of the things he said was that we were dealt with in a special way in regards to chattel slavery. So in order to repair that, we still have to be dealt with in a special way when it comes to repairing what was done to us and bringing us back to a position of before we were ever made chattel. So with that being said, I think that is one of the best ways to do it, is just to go back into that special way how we were treated. It's like, if you guys chose that we were going to be treated in this special way in a disadvantaged state, then guess what? We also have to be treated in a special way when it comes to bringing us back to the level that which we were originally before we were kidnapped from Africa. So,
And Brother James, this is why Special Field Orders 15 is so important, because that moment of beauty in our country that a lot of white Americans as well as Black American Negroes talk about is that part when we were not asking for reparations, right? In that moment when we were politically established, when we were politically engaged, we had senators, we had governors, we had congressmen who were Negroes that literally 5 years ago just came off of a plantation, that are now running local government, that are now running state government, that are now running the state. So that's a powerful position to have ascended from chattel slavery to being in government, to actually running government, alongside those radical Republicans who risked their lives, not just political parties, but actually put their lives on the line to fight alongside the likes of a Frederick Douglass and many of the abolitionist heroes that we honor and sometimes don't honor because we don't know. Today, the main purpose of us getting back to Special Field Orders 15, because it puts us back in a state where we don't seek redress. When we won that war, we weren't seeking redress. When we became Americans, we weren't asking for reparations. We were going ahead and maneuvering ourselves in a framework of government. And that's the position I believe we need to be put back in. Not to the position prior to the slave ships, because prior to that, we were coming from places so vastly diasporically different. We don't know if whether you were picked up when you arrived in Charleston, South Carolina, from Africa or from South America or from the Caribbeans, but we knew we were Negroes being sold on this auction block today. So it makes sense that in that moment, encapsulating up to 1865, the ones that made it to 1865, the descendants that have ancestors that we're able to carry forth in society today, that either ran away, that either fought back, that either capitulated, that either listened, that we survived. We're here because they survived, no matter how they survived. The fact that we are here today, we need to be put back in the position where before we were not asking for reparations. And Special Field Orders 15 is the encompassing of all of that. A land that we have that's our own, that is not supposed to have anybody but Negroes in it. So you're talking about, we have many Negro towns, Negro cities. We're talking about Negro states. We're talking about Negro governors. We're talking about Negro bodies. We're talking about the Negro legislator. We have to have this so we don't suffer the hands of non-Negroes, whether they be of the 1865 stock of Americans or those who might have immigrated later. We don't need to suffer the discrimination from them, the conscious or unconscious bias from them because of their inabilities to understand what position the American Negro is in America. We need our own states, our own legislators, and our own governments, and we need to have the institutions of Special Field Order 15 reinstituted immediately, which is it's not hard at all, because no different than Bruce's Beach had a casino, a hotel, market, and business. They all had to leave. They all had to leave because this land is the ownership of the Bruce's family to do with whatever the Bruce family wants to do. The Bruce family decided to sell it afterwards for economic gains due to the high taxation because, to be honest, the reparations wasn't really done properly crafted to give them a buffer time to actually own it and transfer the property. But because ownership of the property was tantamount more than the transition of property, that allowed them to be in a position of negative to have to say, damn, we can't even pay the taxes on this. We need to sell it in order to be able to make money off of our own property before we lose it again. So I think that in Special Field Orders 15, we need our lands back the way the Special Field Order 15 was written, because it is still written in a manner that is able to be enforced today. And many people say, well, where the money come from for that to be done? Well, our money for that was supposed to come from the War Department. It is now called the Department of Defense. And no matter what party you're with, no matter what your political affluences is or political affiliations are, the War Department and the Secretary, the Department of Defense budget is approved every time. Every year is approved. No matter how big it is, how small it is, the defense budget is always approved. So Special Field Orders 15's budgets or financial obligations will fall under the purview of the bill for the defense bill. Therefore, we're not worried about not getting approved, right? So we're already cool in Congress when it comes to funding it. We just haven't had the expeditious mental capacity of our people to push it forward, because a lot of us still call it a lot of us still call it 40 acres and a mule, when we should be saying we want Special Field Orders 15.
Gotcha. Do you guys have time to take a couple of questions from our audience?
Yeah, for sure. I got about 20 more minutes I could give to the audience. Absolutely. 20 to half an hour. Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being able to pencil us in. So let me share my screen really quick, because I want to start off with Rockman first. Let me see here. One of my brothers here that thank you so much to Laura for the tip on Rockman, says, yes, I am all for reparations. Thank you so much, Laura. Roger says, lineage-based reparations should include direct cash payments, not only from the government, but from Wall Street, since they profited and were created from the profit made from slavery. No tax on Black-owned startups, especially Black-owned worker co-ops. Business grants, not loans. Land back, reinstatement of the Freedmen's Bureau Savings and Trust Bank. In case no one don't know what that is, it was a bank for Civil War vets, American freedmen, that was ransacked by those who didn't have our best interests at heart. Fred Douglass came in to save it, but was too late. Freedmen vets lost their wealth, which is why Black people don't trust banks to this very day. Governor Hochul, who's the governor of New York, secured $183 million for Jews, just like Obama facilitated some money for the Jewish community also. Treasury Secretary can mint a platinum coin, assign any value, and distribute. So just to get your guys' comments on what Roger said so far.
Yeah, again, this is what I was saying about how the government is a money sovereign nation. They don't have to be they don't have to be locked in to any type of how much gold do we have. They can print our money tomorrow, and start issuing it out, and it could go to our people, and we can start doing it just like we did with COVID, right? Just like they did for the Fannie Mae and a house crash, and they printed this money out of nowhere, just like we're doing for illegal immigrants right now. They're coming up with money left and right. New York just approved a credit card that they're going to use. We could have a credit card approved, coming straight from the federal government. Just like they have online systems that verify whether accounts is actually sending. We can literally have a portal that we use where we can utilize credit from the federal government via the portal through a two-way authentication system, whether it be your phone or your email, and the authentication system that's on the portal or on the app that literally refreshes every 60 seconds with the new SSL security key. So there's many ways that they can use to go ahead and actually set us up for us to utilize money right now. The thing is, do they have the intent? Do they have the true purpose and heart? And do they have the vision to get it done? Because to be honest, I don't want a whole bunch of non-Negroes making decisions for our reparations. Because when you see the reparations for the Holocaust victims, a lot of those people were Jewish. There was not many non-Jewish people coming up with reparations decisions for the Holocaust victims. When you're talking about the Japanese internment victims, a lot of their people who were speaking to put together the packages were Japanese American descendants, or Japanese Americans themselves. So just like it was for them, I think the American Negro reparations and the decision making for our people should come from our people and not any other people. Or if it does come from other people, it should be at a 20% to 80%, meaning that there's not so much that their voice should be ignored, but that their voice is not able to sway or deter those who are from the lineage whose ancestors suffered to have to be at the subsequent, to have to be at a subservient level with them. I don't want to go in a room with a whole bunch of people telling me what I deserve and what I'm going to get for my ancestors' debts. I think that it's only right that we go into a room and tell them what we're going to ask and what we're going to demand, and they're going to give us their input, and we're going to be open ears to it. But we're not going to be at the substantial demand that should they decide in the in that adverse way, that we're now suffering again. Because the purpose of reparations is to not have any more suffering. When I pay my restitution or I pay my bills, it's so that I'm not incurring a debt anymore. I'm balancing out the debt with a zero. So I don't want to go into a situation where other people from other nations are making decisions at the behest or for the good for our people, because we've seen through time that other people don't always have the best interest for our people. It is when our people sit down at the table, like they did with General Sherman, Tecumseh Williams, and Secretary of War Stanton, with those 21 religious leaders, to sit back and say, this is what we want for our Negro people going forward, that we then have something that can transcend through the tests of time, like a 40 acres and a mule. Not nothing that's just grandiose to say, oh, this is something we're doing for the Negroes to finally get it done, and it's another welfare program. I don't that's disrespectful, and it's absolutely non-advantageous.
Gotcha. Jamin, you're still muted.
You got to unmute yourself, Brother Jermaine.
Yeah, I would just concur with what Khalif just said, really. I mean, yeah. That was eloquently put. You can't put it better than that. That's for sure.
Gotcha. So just wanted to continue on what Roger was saying. So continuing on, he says, not only must it be lineage based, but also qualification must be that you have chosen Black under race on the census every time it came up. I only say that is what Dr. Darity said.
Yeah,
Right.
when it comes to that, I don't agree with that part. Just because, again, you fall into the strict scrutiny, because we are going to have to pass the bar of strict scrutiny, and any discriminatory factors is not going to pass. So it does not matter whether you chose Black or not. To be honest, the only thing that actually matters is that you have the lineage of the bloodline of the people who suffered, and that is superior more than what you would have chosen on the census or on the paperwork. Because again, you could be talking about the Tate brothers, who probably don't identify as Black. They may identify as British or something else, but at the same time, they have the lineage. You might have a guy like Dwayne Johnson, who identifies more with Polynesian culture, but that doesn't take away that his dad was a Johnson from the Johnson plantation in South Carolina. So it does not matter whether they are identifying or Black or not, as much as what needs to matter and what should be precedent over anybody's deciding factor is that they actually are from the lineage and they're from the bloodline. Because we do have some people who do not identify as Black, but that does not negate them from their claim of their ancestors who are of the lineage.
Understood.
And that is how we are definitely not a monolith. I respect the hell out of Brother Khalif. But I would say I agree with Dr. Darity's mind, how he thinks about that, and how you should stand on who you are and stand on who you were. And so I do agree with that way. But it, like we said, there are going to be different ways there's multiple ways to skin a cat. You know what I'm saying? So I believe that we're here with the same thing, as long as they are talking about real repair, and it's going to lineage based specific people. That's where I would come in and how I would say it. But yeah.
Understood. So continuing on in Roger's questions, he says, American freedmen is the ethnicity. That's the delineation that is needed to argue in court. It is written into the congressional record. For the purposes of making a case in court, that is what must be used to argue in court for reparations. I understand what you said about Negro, but Negro is not written into the congressional record. Justice Jackson even used the word American freedmen. He says you're going to make whites and others catch these hands if you start getting them comfortable with saying Negro, bro.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, it's this is just something that you have to recognize, right? When you're talking about the congressional record, Negroes in the Constitution. Uh, when you're talking about Negroes, Freedmen is the Freedmen's Bank didn't even survive the test of time, but the Negro Leagues did. The United Negro College Fund did. The National
mhm,
Council of Negro Women did. I don't think calling the Negroes offensive. I think calling non-Negroes is offensive. But there's no offense in saying we're Negro. That's not going to get white people in any harm's way. That is absolutely false notion. Again, the president of the United States recently had said that great Negro pitcher Satchel Paige, and the president of the Hall of Fame said that he would have not had the president use any other word. So it makes absolute sense that we recognize not only who we are, but what terms identified our people. It was only in 1960 that Negro was changed over into this black through the form of black revolutionary. But prior to that, we chose to call ourselves Negroes. Whether you were
mhm,
white, you called us Negro. Whether you were black, you called us Negro. The thing about it is this: the derogatory term for Negro is Nigger. It's the hard er. It is not Negro. Negro is a non Negro does not register as offensive. Nigger is. And so understanding that, it is very understood to know that calling me a Negro is not offensive, but calling me a Nigger is. So we can't say that Negro is equal to Nigger. That's not true. See, emotions have to always be put into check, and logic must always supersede emotional. So if I'm going through something and I'm talking to the government, or the government's engaging with me through documents and paperwork, there is a substantial amount of evidence under the Negro identifier for the Negro people, whether you're talking about enslavement and freedom. When you're talking about freedmen paperwork and freedmen documents, you're talking about a paperwork trail that hasn't even stood the test of time through many situations, through many things. Meaning the Freedmen's Bureau ransacked, raided, shut down, abolished. The Freedmen's Bureau avenues. Some places got their stuff microfilmed, some did not. But my great grandma and my grandma's birth certificate says Negro. My great grandfather and my grandfather's birth certificate says Negro. It is only me and my mom's that say black. So I have a better chance of going to the government as a descendant of an enslaved Negro in America than I do of going as a descendant of a freedman, due to the fact that my paperwork I could bring with me to that government will strictly have me linear from enslavement property all the way to me now as Negro. Whereas I go from freedman, I might have a freedman document. I haven't found any freedman documents in my stuff, but I might have a freedman over here. I might have a freedman over there. And so I see somebody else said that it was a Spanish word. Again, in America, the word black denotes black. Spanish is not the language of America. In America, we speak English. So in America, Negro is not the same as the Spanish speaking Negro. Negro in America is not an adjective, it is a noun, meaning it is not denoting a color, it's denoting a person, place, or thing. So therefore, when you see black, it is not a noun, it's an adjective. It does not denote a people, it is a color. This is very important because the false teachings that we have been taught is to go through and think that when you say Negro is equal to saying black. But we just mentioned the 1864 California State Supreme Court case, People versus Hall, that said there's a wide difference between the two. A Negro may be a black person, but not every black person is a Negro. That's still true today in our conversations as we talk about in the term of delineation. When I say I'm delineating under the class of blackness, Obama's an African American president. Obama's a black president. Obama is not a Negro president. Obama is not the descendant of the ancestors who built the White House. This is very important because it is important to know that a Negro may be a black person. Obama is not a Negro, though. So we need to make sure that when we're having these conversations, we're doing so with as much knowledge as possible as to how the dynamic works, but with as little emotion as possible as well.
And JB, this kind of this goes to what I was saying when I was saying we're gonna put some water on this, because it sounds like we definitely have went through strict scrutiny in our own ways, just standing on Negro, and this sounds like a Freedman Negro conversation. Whoever's asking these questions, we've heard about them forever. And we have 2024, we have officially gave up the name banging Twitter Twitter words. And so we're not trying to, yes, they all denote from Negro. Yes, that's what we believe, and we believe that's the best case to gain true repair through this government, is stepping towards that, our government, in the name of the ancestors, as they called themselves, as they self-identified. And so that's kind of where we're coming from, but we are not taking away from anybody, and we are not name banging at all. That was like a New Year's resolution. All the Negroes was like, we ain't fighting no more, because the Twitter streets were real. But yeah, that's kind of where we are at, and that's what it sounds like, is somebody standing on Freeman, which is cool, and that is all part of the Negro. So that's why I was saying, let's put some water on that. It was kind of joking. Yeah, but
all right. Well, you guys agree pretty much on everything else, so that's pretty much it. I think it's more of a semantics thing, but
it is,
just
Brother James, and it's. And again, if I was to go and tell you, just like right now, if you go and look up the Black's Law Dictionary online, and actually put it in there, if you go ahead and actually look up the word freedman, right? I don't have it directly on me, but Black's Law Dictionary, and I'll just read it to you so our people can know, right? Because a lot of times our folks just don't even know, right? Folks just don't know. If you look up the term freedman, I'll read it to you right now, just so we can just kind of, put water under the bridge. It's called the lawdictionary.org. You type in freedman, MEN, FREEDMEN, and nothing comes up. You have to type in freedman. I think it's MAN.
I think I got it here.
Yep, freedman. It comes up in Roman law, one who was set free from a state of bondage, an emancipated slave. The word is used in the same sense in the United States respecting Negroes who were formerly slaves. I don't think I can get any more clearer than that when I say I am the American Negro. So I can say I'm a Negro, and I don't have to say I'm a freedman. And if you do say you're a freedman and don't say you're a Negro, the eyes of the law sees it as you're a Negro by saying such, because that's how the term defines it.
Understood. So I wanted to get to this petition that you all have also for people to take a look at, because I wanted to make sure I covered this too. This is a petition on change.org. It says teamwork wins games, and the hashtag Black American Negro Collective needs 13 more $25 donations for 12 months. So this is the change.org. You guys have 1,616 signatures so far, on your way to 2,500. So I will share this in the chat as well. What is this petition specifically for? Jamin?
Okay. Yeah, my mute wasn't working. So the petition is specifically for federal reparations, to be paid for us. So these signatures, it's got the president is tagged on it, and this change.org is a really awesome way to kind of ring the alarm. And so by signatures, it's getting people's attention across the country. and we're getting support. It's been up since July of 2023 is when I started, and it's really catching momentum. But please, that was just a request, kind of going through the analytics. $25 a month times 12, it was like $450 or 450 signatures a month. If I think it was 15 people donated $25. And so that was just a suggestion, a teamwork wins games kind of situation. But please support us in any way, sharing it, signing it, sending money to get signatures. Any way it goes, it is bringing attention to this mandatory mission. So that's kind of where the petition's attached to the website that you shared earlier, American Union Reparations.com. That's where the resolution and all that PDFs and all that stuff is, so each state can fill out their own resolution. They're kind of tied together, and that's in respect to the website and the resolution. So that petition is tied to it, and just really bringing national attention to this American issue.
Okay. Thank you so very much for that as well, for sharing that too. So when it comes to this this discussion of reparations, this is deeply important, especially towards because a lot of times we talk about liberation of people like ourselves. We talk about being in solidarity with other groups for their liberation. I think it's also important that other groups who are for liberation also express their solidarity with us when it comes to having a repair that is done, especially those of us who are American descendants of the enslaved, here in this country. So if you guys can, I'll start with you, Jamin, or I'm sorry, Khalif, due to the sake of time, where can they find you and how can they get in touch with you?
Retweet the post, brother Jamin Mason. Definitely is a good way as well. Going ahead and tapping in through the link. We're gonna have more of our stuff that is on a more of an online footprint. I know that we're gonna go ahead and start putting some stuff together as far as getting the organization and stuff going online, where we can start really pushing this stuff. We do a lot of partnerships with different organizations as well, like our wonderful brother New Negro Republic. We actually all talk to each other, and that's the beauty about it. That's why it's like the Negro Syndicate. When you talk to brother Jamin Mason, we talk every day. We got each other's phone numbers. We actually talk to each other. Our brother New Negro Republic, we talk to each other every day as well. We have a wonderful group of American Negresses as well. We have Twitter spaces online. You can see me as the Negro Farmer as well on Twitter. But like I said, we're going to really, especially for political and stuff like that coming up, one of the main things that we're trying to do right now is build up our Negro Republican Party back, bringing it back into motion like our ancestors did when we left the plantations. So that's something that we're doing as far as our plans, getting organizations going so we can actually be in the conversation when it's actually happening and not just be looking from afar as things happening from a response perspective. So when they're dishing out money to other groups, we can be at the meeting, we can be another organization, so we can find out if these people are planning against us, with us, for us, and kind of, go with that nuance. But brother Jamin Mason as well is doing a lot of things on the back end. We talked to senators. We just had a talk with a congressman from DC just last year. I think it was in, I want to say November, October, or something like that. And we plan on doing a lot more stuff going forward. My brother has an event coming up, brother New Negro, talking about Save the Negro, where we're literally going to go ahead and go up there to Washington, D.C. I'm going to make sure I try to get there At best I could, Godspeed, I can, but I know Brother Jamin Mason is going to be there in attendance. And we're just going to be talking about reparations and getting our check and talking about all of the things about our Negro people, our Negro history, and why we're owed and demand reparations from our federal government. One of the things I just want to say is thank you to you as well, Brother James, brother Jamin Mason. Speak highly of you as well. I've seen some of your videos, but I actually seen a lot more of the brother you work with from, I think, Black Revolutionary Talk. I think he's on. I want to say he's on. What show is that? With the comedian guy. He's on his show so many times. I think it'll come to me.
Jimmy Dore.
Yeah, Jimmy Dore.
Yeah,
the Jimmy
Nick,
Dore show.
Nick and CJ.
Yeah, Nick. I see a lot of stuff from Nick. I love that. I love that type of conversation. So when I connected with you to have this live today, it was definitely just keeping it in our family, keeping it with our people, and I love having these conversations. Because to be honest, I feel like there's not enough Negro media covering a lot of our issues. Because I could go to, I could go on a Good Morning America. I can go on The View. But to be honest, I think us having a conversation with each other is actually a lot more better, because there's something about Negro unity that I think the viewers need to see that's actually more beneficial than just hearing a conversation about reparations. When they actually see three Negro men actually knowing what we're talking about, having the concerns for our community, I think that that's something that our community has lacked in a lot of, because going forward, we've always had to have a white person in the midst. There had to be somebody white talking to us, right? Whereas now going forward, we can have the conversation even on white networks and let it be known that we're having it without being a disparaging, bias, or discriminatory towards non-Negro people. And I think that that speaks to the character of yourself, the character of your platform, and also the character of those who you bring on your platform, including ourselves. So I just wanted to tell you thank you as well. I love what you're doing, and I will definitely make sure I stay tapped in, because you are me, I am you. And as Negro, we grow. As I always tell my brother Jamin, the biggest thing you can do as an American Negro is not try to prove who you are to anybody else. Just exist. Literally, as long as we exist, we can never die. And so that's something that I leave to you. I leave to everyone. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak as well.
Yeah, and also congratulations on the new little one, by the way.
Thank you very much. Yes, that's why I'm in the car now. Right, I cooked a huge brunch for the family. I made sure the family was good. Took a nice shave and a nice shower. But I couldn't just leave the house because my babies will literally come follow me. So I made sure that they were good in the house. I got one taking a nap. I had the other one set up for it. As a matter of fact, I had two taking a nap. My baby boy, my oldest daughter was taking a nap. My other two are playing with mom. Mom's having a moment to herself as well. So happy wife, happy life, happy kids. Gotcha. Everything is good. So I can't be more blessed. God is definitely showing himself to me every day. And I'm definitely able to say that it is a blessing being a husband. It is a blessing being an American Negro man to my family. And it also is a blessing to be amongst my brothers and my peers to discuss things about our future for our children. Because to be honest, we need to have these conversations so our children don't have to. And I think that that's something that the men of generations prior should have looked at, so that way we don't have to do this work. But this is not nothing that I also look down on as well, neither, because every generation of men has to have something that we leave our mark on in history. And I think this is ours. So thank you for that as well. And peace and blessings to you and your house.
Thank you so much, Khalif. And for you, Jamie Mason, where can they find you and what do you have coming up?
Yeah, so Twitter, the handle is that Negro Jammin'. So definitely hit me up on Twitter. Very active on there. Pushing reparations out here in Washington State. Haven't really gotten the traction with my people that I was hoping would pop off, but it's kind of slowly coming together. People are seeing that, whoa, this is really happening. This is really a possibility. And, I think it's coming around. So please, each one teach one. Thank you for letting us share information today that a lot of people just don't know. They have no idea what we shared today. So putting it out there and doing it with a host that seriously made it comfortable, and yeah, I appreciate you letting us talk on here and spill our truth as it should be. So thank you. Khalif said a lot of what I want to say. You touched on the petition. Jamin Mason at Gmail is my email. Please reach out. If you want to build, that's what the Negroes are doing. We're doing it intentionally. A lot of people haven't seen the true dedication that we have in what we're doing, but it kind of shows in our work, and we are proud to say that it's working. And so, again, thank you very much, JB, and we appreciate y'all. I think I know I'm subscribed, and it's cool. My mom, she was like, "Wait, is he insulin? What was it? Are you diabetic or something? Did you
No,
do?"
I'm on kidney dialysis. So yeah, I
Oh,
go to kidney
okay,
dialysis once a week. Yeah.
okay.
Hmm.
Dialysis. Okay.
Hmm.
So it's, there is, she related with that. That was something that I believe my dad or someone had went through. Maybe it was my grandpa. But anyways, we were talking about it before, and it's really crazy when you can relate with someone that a lot of people don't get to, actually conversate with, and get to see the Negro brilliance that you have. So I really appreciate it all coming together, and us kind of getting to share with you, you sharing with us, and us educating and sharing, giving solutions for problems that have been going on for way too long. So again, thank you, JB, very much.
Thank you so much, brothers, for joining. You guys have yourself a beautiful, peaceful, and liberated evening. And I will catch you guys on the next one.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. And I would be remiss if I did not give a shout out to Sabby Sabs as well. I seen her down there. I made sure I sent her a shout out on Twitter as well. I love that sister. She's an amazing American Negro woman. And I just wanted to send her roses as well. Because not only do I just love my brothers, I love my American Negro women as well. They are the reason we exist. I come from the matrix of one. So I would be remiss not to give credit and grace from that which brought me forth. So shout out to that wonderful sister as well, and peace and blessings to her and all that she do. And I'm glad that, we're all from the same tree as well. Anyway, I always say to myself in my spirit that our ancestors were working on a plantation together, planning our escape. And we are the visual representations of them escaping. We just have to remember that where we came from is not where we're going, and where we're going we might not be sure of, but we know we have an anywhere but here mindset. So when sometimes our slaves would run away from a plantation, they weren't necessarily guaranteed that they might not get caught, or that they might not get caught in another plantation, but they had an anywhere but here mindset that gave them enough will and courage to leave, and enough vigor to go ahead and do what was necessary to seek a freedom, even though sometimes it may be futile or at their own peril. So long as we keep that in our spirit, we'll make sure that we are from survivors and we'll continue to survive. But we'll also carry with us the will to build anew and to have a vision for something better, which is why I think Special Field Orders 15 or the 40 Acres and a Mule was drafted, because it was drafted from those who wanted something better for their people, and we are their people. So therefore, we should be building in the same manner. So thank you, Brother James. Peace and blessings to you. Thank you, Brother Jamin. I love y'all, my Negroes. As Negro we go. Thank you to all of the chat. Thank you for everybody who listened. Thank you to all of the freedmen. Thank you for all of the Black indigenous, all of my Negroes. I love you. Be strong. And Negro reparations is the order of the day. Peace, power, and Negro reparations, family. Be blessed. I'm out.
Thank you. Bye-bye. All right. So that was a very deep and nuanced conversation. I just want to thank everybody for joining in for that one. A lot of times we'll get a lot of people who will, in good faith, ask these many different questions about reparations. Why is it necessary? Is it necessary? How it can be implemented? And so you're coming at it from not just a moral argument, but now we're also coming at it from the logistical argument and saying, well, how do we do this? And one of the things that I want to say, as far as when people go, well, how are we going to do this? Is like, well, y'all got to figure that out. It's just like, for instance, if if somebody owes, if we, owe a bill, they don't need to know how we're going to figure it out. It's just as long as we figure it out. When it comes to the federal government, they got it. We know they have it. I mean, just remember back in early of 2021, in the beginning of the pandemic, when they actually dumped, I think it was about $4 trillion into the markets. So if they can dump $4 trillion into the markets, they can dump a little bit into the pockets of the people who they owe, which they have gotten free labor from. So with that being said, I just wanted to go through the rest of the chat just a little bit, just to get some of your thoughts as well, because you guys also had quite a bit to say. So this is from Twitter. Robert Stubberfield says, fact, reparations are so necessary for us, from slavery to redlining, displacement, environmental racism, desecration of our burial grounds, etc. Now, this is actually a really good point. And one of the reasons why I say it is a good point is because there are some lakes within the United States where Black communities used to be. But what they did was they actually made it so that they put water on top and made it into a lake. And so now those Black neighborhoods, those communities are now gone, underwater forever. It's the same way with Seneca Village. Do you know what Seneca Village is? Don't worry, I'll tell you. Seneca Village was actually a Black neighborhood in New York City, particularly I think it was Manhattan. But now it's what they call Central Park. They're literally a Black neighborhood that was destroyed for Central Park. So when it comes to places like that, also to the desecration of burial grounds, from what happened, for instance, I'm in Orlando, and what's not too far from me is Ocoee, the Ocoee massacre for Black people who dared to actually vote and try to get some type of political power. This happened here in Central Florida. It's also, if you go further north, you have Rosewood. You also have what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma. This happened, I think, in 1921. And so, which a lot of people call Black Wall Street. So a lot of these things that have happened are continuing to happen, really, even down to this day. But it is important that we realize that a lot of the grievances that we have are due to the crimes that have been done to us time and time again, and it continuously is done to us as really the descendants of the enslaved in this country. So I think it's important for us to continuously take a look at what's going on, what has been done to us, and how repairs can be made in that regard. So thank you very much for that, Robert. Thank you so much, Eric. He says, which is why the fight for reparations will pit us Black folks directly against the American empire itself. John B. Thank you very much for that. Sean Miller says, JB, thank you for this. These guests were very informing. Yes, deeply informing. I think this is one of the reasons why I want to have this conversation as well, because we have to. It is imperative. John B says, reparation must deliver self-respect, independence, and confidence. All that comes with a full-time, proper job. I think it should be whether we have a job or not. It should not be limited to just if we have a job or not. Because, for instance, my mother deserves reparations. So should she go back to work at 72 years old, just to have that respect, independence, and confidence? You know what I mean? So yeah. Another one from John B says reparation must consist of more than a one-off money payment. A cash payment is soon ripped off by poor people by opportunist capitalists. A job guarantee is a must-see MMT. While I also agree that it should be more than just a payment, it should also be land. I think land. It should also include things like education, housing, many different things that are encompassing, not just cash payments. So I think it should be a blend of cash payment as well as different policies that would make it so that we are not taken advantage of once we receive the reparations as well. So yes. Eric Gray says, just to make sure that the chat knows where this book about the new book about reparations that came out earlier this month called Radical Reparations, Healing the Soul of a Nation by Marcus Anthony Hunter. Thank you so much for that. Mizu asks a question, JB, I support reparations on the condition that it's paired with a bill supporting indigenous people. Okay. Here's the thing. Indigenous people have their own thing, and I express my solidarity with them because whatever they ask for, whatever they demand, that needs to be done. But the thing is that are they also saying, okay, we want what we want, but you guys have to do a reparations with it? I think it's important that we express solidarity because they also were victims of white supremacy and capitalism. At the same time, they have to deal with their issue. We have to deal with our issue, but we express solidarity with each other in our fights. Do you know what I mean? So I hope that makes sense. KD Lewis says, what about Negroes and freedmen whose lineage track back to black, mulatto, bourgeois families that weren't enslaved or owned slaves themselves? Would their lineage be eligible for reparations? Oh man, that's a really great question. I should have asked that. I'm sorry. That's also a really great question. But I think that when it comes to people who, if you can trace it back to if they are descendants of slaves, because a lot of us are also descendants of the enslavers, because that's where that European comes in. Like, I got Norwegian in me. Where did that Norwegian come from? Right? But that being said, then I would get paid based on the lineage of the person that's enslaved. So I think it would go to the same thing, right? Because what if somebody is a descendant of slave, but they suddenly became slave owners, right? Or something like that, which is not outside the realm of possibility. They still, in technicality, would be eligible for reparations, right? So I think it depends on like where their lineage goes to ultimately, because as some people may get pissed off at this, somebody like Oprah Winfrey would get reparations because if she is a as they put it, as an American Negro, well, she will be owed that reparations. So yeah, because there's probably a Winfrey plantation out there. And to my sister from another mister, Savvy Sabs, love you, JB. Love you, Sabs. Good to see you in the chat. Roger says, Mizu, I have to ask you not to pair our thing with others when others are not asked to pair their thing with ours. This is what Democrats do all the time to sidestep our issues. Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. And Savvy Sav says, no one asked Japanese Americans to lump freedmen with them when they got reparations. This only happens to freedmen. Unfortunately, that's the unfair part. We're always told, well, what are your thoughts about the reparations for other people? And it's like we support that, but right now we're talking about what's for us, and so I think that's only fair that we go about it that way. Let me see. Ghost Nest says, good questions, though these are a little talking points to get out there into the discussion. So thank you very much. All right. So, Layers of Snark says, why is it always when black folks need something, there's always got to be some kind of conditions? Ultimately, because the conditions are typically barriers to keep us from getting what we actually deserve. I mean, that's the best way I can put it. Yeah, it's just as a barrier to keep us from getting what is actually owed to us. Yeah. But yeah, I hope that was a concise answer, but yeah. Ooh, Layers of Snark says, I am disabled and it cannot work. Reparations will help someone like me greatly. I'm disabled as well. So yeah. Let me see. Oh, Robert says, yep, like Rainier, old Neversink in Central Park. Yeah. So I'm gonna head out because number one, JB hasn't eaten since this morning when I had that smoothie. That smoothie was good, but it went through me. But I just want to say thank you to everybody who is joined in for this. I know this is not the sexiest topic. It's just not, right? And of course, with topics like this, I'm not going to have a huge influx of people coming in because I'm not, lambasting a particular person, right? But conversations like this are deeply important because it means this is part of the crux of liberation for a disenfranchised people, right? And so I encourage you guys to, and not just this stream, right? Share this with other people who share other streams of people who have talked about this. I know RBN has had people talk about reparations as well. I know Savvy Savs, who's in the chat, she's had on Dr. Sandy Darity share her videos. Everybody who has talked about reparations, especially when it regards to like lineage-based reparations. I know Savvy Savs also have recently had on Marcel Dixon as well. That's also a really good conversation to take a look at. RBN has had on somebody from the California Reparations Task Force as well. But these are really good to show, especially to white people. And love and shout out to all the white people who have solidarity with me out there. Love you. I think this is important for you to share with other white people. The reason being is because it's about fairness. Ultimately, that's what it's about. if you deeply care about fairness and justice, then talking about reparations, especially with other white people, it's also part of that. And taking the stigma away of, oh my God, I have to pay this. It's like, no, 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 no. It's not coming out of your pocket. It's coming out the federal government. It's not coming out of your pocket. And if they can give all this money to the banks, they can give all this money to Wall Street, they can give it to the people that it's actually owed. So just wanted to put that out there as well. So I want to thank Khalif as well as Jamin for joining. It was so good to have them both in here to have that conversation. If you guys have not already, I will be doing some readings in the near future for my channel. I already went over that a little bit earlier, so we'll be going into Of Water and the Spirit. We'll be going over The Will to Change by Bell Hooks, and as well as Laziness Does Not Exist by Dr. Devon Price. I will be live on Tuesday, just as normal, with some news stories as well. So be sure to tune in on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, as always. And then on top of that, I will be live next Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern. I will be having a guest join me, Avion. They will be joining me next Saturday, so I am excited for that as well. Now, if you guys have not already, if you guys have not subscribed to my Substack so you guys can get email notifications whenever I go live, upload clips, or write any articles, you guys have that. You guys can also like the stream on your way out. I very deeply appreciate it. Just let you guys know, I also have a merch store. If you guys would like to, I also have that too. That also helps me out just a little bit to keep the lights on. So if you guys would like to, you guys can go to Bonfire and you guys can go to the Jaybefaunt store. They have that as well. There's hats, shirts, bags, mugs. So yeah, so you have that there too. And also thank you so much to all the new patrons on Patreon and all the patrons on Patreon that are up and coming. Thank you so much. And all the existing ones, you guys have literally helped me out. You have no idea. So thank you. All right. So I am going to head on out. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything on Rockfin. Yeah, I got some things on Rockfin. Let me make sure that I get these on Rockfin really quick before I go because I do not want to miss it. I'm still having withdrawals from the last time I accidentally missed Rockfin, and I'm still sorry, Roger. Okay. So thank you to Laura. Says, I don't know why Rockfin keeps putting question marks at the end of all my comments. All for reparations, no question marks. Reparations talk is sexy for all of us who deserve them. Well, but they think that's their money, even though it's always talking ish about the government. How can you be so angry about government system you set up? It is very strange. Oh, Laura. Thank you so much for that. All right. So I'm going to share. Let me see. Make sure I got this right. Refresh. Come on. All right. So I have this closing video that I'm going to do. And oh, by the way, so I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you guys in the next one. Oh, by the way, solidarity with all my comrades who are doing the pro-Palestine marches around the United States and around the world today. You guys are doing the damn thing. Shout out to all the ones that are doing the pro-Palestine marches near Lock Haven Park here in Orlando. You guys are doing the damn thing out there. I was, passing you guys by as I was on my way to do this stream, on my way home to do this stream. So thank you so very much for being out there, for showing solidarity with the Palestinian people. Not only ceasefire, but also in the apartheid and in the occupation for those people who are our siblings in Palestine as well. Shout out to all of you for that. I just want to make sure I'd say that as well. Look, water your plants, water yourselves. I'm watering myself here. Make sure you do the same. Just don't do it through Nestle. You know, Nestle's an evil corporation. But anyways, water your plants, water yourselves. Leave the world better than you found it. And if you want to, smoke them if you got them. If you want to, you can drink them if you got them. But if you ain't got them, then watch something funny and laugh, because joy is also revolutionary. And baby, I gotta give it to you. Mwah! I gotta give you a full kiss. Mwah! I gotta give you double forehead kisses. Why? Because you deserve it. You gotta get some love from me. You know I love you. And you know, I give it all day, every day, and twice on Sundays, which means it's gonna be twice tomorrow. Ha ha! All right, everybody. You guys have yourself a good one. And look, reparations now. That's what we got to say. See you when I see you. All
Black people are the only people on the planet who have their internal conflict, their regular internal conflict, used as rationale for their oppression. The entire world wants you to know that the only way that they will acknowledge the oppression of African people, the only way they will acknowledge what they did to African people, is if you are morally perfect. Anybody who brings up that argument with you does not have any interest in acknowledging your oppression to begin with. We never bring up Latinx on Latinx crime. We never bring up Asian on Asian crime. We only bring up Black on Black crime because they truly believe you deserve what happened to you. They truly believe that you deserve the most brutal, unforgiving, and unescapable oppression of humankind history, because African people used to sell each other too. Truly believe that any minute imperfection of the behaviors of African people since the beginning of time, any single blemish that you could find on our record, can justify what we have faced as a people. Everybody will acknowledge that the Holocaust was a terrible thing. Everybody will acknowledge that the Holocaust should not have happened. Everybody will acknowledge that Jews deserve an apology, that Jews deserve support, that Jews deserve remittances. You will never see anybody talking about the Holocaust and saying, well, Jews did this to Jews before, but all because Crips don't like Bloods, Noops don't like Alphas, Black women not unified with Black men. We deserve the worst treatment in humankind history. Peace out.
thank you so very much for watching my channel, and I deeply appreciate it from the top and bottom of my heart. If you wish to support the channel further, so I can keep bringing you content that is educational and informative, you can become a patron on patreon.com/Jaybefaunt. You can find that link in the pinned comment or in the description below. No matter what you give, you'll be supporting independent media and education that helps make the world better. Thank you so much, and you can watch more of my content here. Mwah. Forehead kisses, and have a beautiful day.